Well, that conversation was weird. I will highlight only the interesting conversation. According to William, Australia has terrible pizza. Prove him wrong. Okay.
Are you saying that you're going to prostrate yourself in front of our god? Something like that?
No, not even that. He claimed that American takeaway pizza was better than anything you could get in Australia at all.
No, anything that he experienced in
Oh,
Australia.
that's true. I guess where were you?
And I was all up the East Coast, and I literally had maybe 14 different pizza places.
My lord.
I mean,
Every last one.
Imagine being so determined.
No. One slice, 2 bites, throw it away because it's awful.
Wow, that is an aggressive statement.
And I'm a
there.
Davis.
No, I get that. That is aggressively bad pizza. Is it the cheese? Is it the crust? Like, what is so bad?
Everything. It's not pizza. It's cardboard with fake cheese. It's just not good. It's not good.
William, just to
It's amusing with Americans saying fake cheese. Don't you have like liquid cheese?
No.
Well,
But
yeah,
again, that's not what we do. Like, William and I don't eat that stuff. We don't eat Kraft, right? We don't buy that stuff. So we just like his football team. So William, just so you guys know, specifically said that American Domino's pizza is better than any of the 14 places he's tried over there, and we all agree Domino's is absolute garbage pizza and doesn't even get put on a scale of 1 to 10. It's like a -1 on a 1 to 10. You know what I mean? So that means Australia is worse than 0. So, but either way, that's his experience. Maybe your experience is different.
School shootings?
On one of the pizzas, they put raw garlic on top. I was just like, "What are you doing? You're doing too much."
Yeah.
Is this to hide the flavor of the bad pizza?
Either way, I mean, the conversation started because I'm having leftovers from last night. My wife made pizza last night because she makes good homemade pizza. So, anyways, back to where we were. We were having hours pass. Were your characters doing anything aside from just basic musings, running of the nation, like talking to these people there about that stuff, these people there about that stuff, so on and so forth. Maybe actually resting for a moment.
Yeah, I'm gonna grab a rest.
Yeah. You just had your world shattered. So, whereas one sharpens his blade, Ilan's like, that was a good guy. You're like, I need to hide.
You don't understand. He's gonna grab a rest. I mean, he's got a different arm now, right?
Oh my god. Oh wow.
He's gonna break that puppy in.
Ew, dude.
I'm sorry. Chat, not you guys. Chat. You guys deserve it. Continue.
Moving on. So I'm disappointed in you, Neil. I want you hear that, Chloe? I'm disappointed in Neil.
Speaking of Chloe, why'd you start wearing her hair tie?
She officially put on the pants and said, "Let's go." So moving on. You guys, hours pass. You kind of do whatever you need to around the kingdom, and eventually you would have the army would march and stop outside. And this is later in the day. Would march and stop outside of Kurzfall. You get reports that the army is there, and then some gap of time happens before the actual general comes in. Maybe he was just giving orders to his soldiers or handling whatever he needed to outside, but he doesn't have all the soldiers come indoors because he doesn't need to. There's going to be a degree of rust. But the general comes in. He comes in with a few of his lieutenants to come inside. But unfortunately, he doesn't just come in with them. He also comes to the gates and through them with a cart that has a few carts, actually, that unfortunately have the injured and those that have passed. He rides through the city and delivers to them where it is appropriate for them to do so. It's been some time since he had delivered people here, but your castle does have a bit of we'll call it a morgue there. Obviously this isn't something that you'd be just walking downstairs in the front, door into the area, but around because the castle does have, again, a rather large basement area. It would have been segmented and whatnot. It is cool and dark down there. You can imagine there is a spots that
Boy, we haven't opened this since we put that weird Perrin corpse in here. Opens it just.
Funny enough, not exactly inaccurate. Moving on. So, you guys may, they go and they're, of course, going to deliver the dead to where they need to and the injured to where they need to. And then after handling stuff there, the general will eventually make his way to the castle. He doesn't beeline it there because obviously he's handling important things. It's going to be by the time he actually gets to the castle itself, it's going to be around nightfall for the day. The sun is very low in the horizon, certainly being under the canopy of trees that most of your Kurzfall happens to be. It is going to be fairly dark there, and the various kind of street torches and where people walking around with their own lanterns or whatever is going to be what's seen from outside of a window or whatever in the castle. The castle itself lit by its own sconces here and there. Would you guys be awaiting, knowing that he's around, for him in the throne room, or is it one of those? No. We can meet with him formally/informally inside the map room as well, or how would you go to meet with him? Would everybody be present to hear with the general, or what's the plan here?
I would have been spending my day at Virgo's shrine. So if I heard tell of him coming in, I would probably go to meet him.
Good. Actually, I like that because he can speak to you on the side. When you go to approach him, I imagine it's one of those things where he would turn to you and you would even say to him, like, hail and hi or whatever it is first. And he would respond and say, chosen of the blade, I hope things fare well.
They do here. How do they fare for you?
We have been successful, but unfortunately at a cost.
How high?
We've lost some. Others are injured. Many of them will recover and will be able to live relatively, if not completely, normal lives, and others, not so much. I was actually thinking, as we fought them, as we heard the screams and ailed whatever concerns we could of the soldiers, and on the long march back, I was thinking, why is it we're not seeking aid from those that we know can provide so much of it?
Who are you referring to, General?
There were those women that there seems to be a degree of disdain for, out of Hod Gwen. They can provide medicinal aid where we need it. They can aid our soldiers. I understand they're of Hod Gwen. I understand they're of a different faith. But they can actually help our soldiers, keep some of them alive, or return those that are living to a more normal lifestyle.
Well, General, I have good news for you then. Nathan has just come back earlier today with a rather large supply of healing herbs and such, and Rayron is going to Hod Gwen to, I believe, organize something, if not exactly, then similar to what you just suggested.
Then the martyr smiles upon Kurzfall once again.
Speaking of the martyr, General, have you ever... No, I don't think that you would. I'm leaving tomorrow to fight alongside an angel. Would you like to come?
An angel?
An angel. An angel appeared today, sent from the martyr and the arbiter to cleanse an area of the undead.
The arbiter?
Memek.
He has a new title now?
Yes, he does.
Oh. Much has changed. An angel? You mean a creature of the gods has come to cleanse the undead?
In an area, I believe he said. He invited... I don't know who exactly he invited. He was talking to me, Rayron, and... do I know he was talking to Ilan as well?
No, you may not have noticed that.
Yeah, I don't think I would have. He was addressing myself and Rayron and said if we wished to fight alongside him, we'd be welcome. I dare say that would extend to anyone willing to fight the undead. and this is not a chance to be missed.
You said he's protecting an area, correct?
Yes.
Do we have that defined area?
I'll relay whatever it was that he said.
Yep. He says, then we know what area will be safe. If we believe this is an actual angel and it's here to aid us, I will take the soldiers beyond that area. It's best that we lend aid where we can and not just look for our own enjoyment.
Well, you are a good man, General, and I respect that.
Pragmatic one, I would say.
All the same.
I had an interesting conversation outside the gates. It's what belayed my entrance in them.
Yes, do tell.
It seems as though there is a small group of the free folk that have a bit of an interest with us. I asked them directly. And the three that I encountered seemed to be the same three that were the ones that procured and delivered the slaver into our prison cells.
What did they want?
Trading of information and to deliver a gift.
Not one to look a gift horse in the mouth?
Fortunately for you, it's not going to be a horse. I suppose for the sake of dramatics, will deliver the gift before all of the chosen. Well, all of the council, I should say.
Okay, then let me accompany you back to the throne room and we will summon the council.
Oh,
One of these days we'll get you smiling again, Leon. One of these days.
In the interim, there are injured soldiers here. If you'd like to have a word with them before you join me back at the castle, I'm sure they'd like to hear something from their leader.
Not the best at those speeches, but I will do my best. These are our soldiers and they're fighting to free our lands. It's only appropriate.
He nods.
I'll do that.
Okay, so you turn and you can say some words with them or whatever. Honestly, you can make a check, just a flat diplomacy if you don't have another skill that you think would be more appropriate for this. And you can, just have that be how you're... You can even go religion if you want to sit there and try to say stuff in the name of Roga, but honestly, that sounds more like raging war versus,
I will go with religion anyway, because that is me. I will also guidance myself before I speak. I must say a prayer.
In the name of Roga, don't suck.
Pretty much. Although it's a religion check, so you know what these have been like.
91.
Alright, so it's one extra than this. 22.
You give a speech about Vroga, you know what I mean, and about the importance of battle, and how battle, of course,
Breaking
makes...
the chains of our undead oppressors. Come on, Scott.
Yeah, except he has an 8 charisma, so it sounds more like go to a Catholic church. You know what I mean? It's
I have a trait that makes me use my wisdom. Thank you. So I'm using the wisdom of my words.
There you go. So you just sound like Grandpa. Collect these pearls. One day you can string together a thought.
If only everyone listened to their grandpas, then maybe the world would be more wise.
Oh, so it's okay that I'm a boomer? You guys should listen to me.
You're not my grandpa, boomer.
Anyways, so while you're giving them a pearl necklace, Tesh?
Yeah, so I was going to say Ilan would want to be doing something during this sort of like waiting time.
Mm-hmm.
He's going to go visit the Temple of the Martyr.
Sure.
So it's one of those things where
it's a legit temple too. Like it's actually it's big and beautiful.
It's one of those things where he would be
See Val's belongings.
When he's in his room deciding whether he's going to do it or not. It'd be one of those things where he goes back and forth, but given what's happened today, he's wanting. He feels like he needs to, so he's gonna go and enter the temple.
He goes in. There are parishioners there, worshippers.
He would. Is there like what sort of like going on? Just people doing their own thing?
So, I mean, at the temple itself, the temple is, beautiful on the inside and depicting not only the typical like effigies or mosaics or whatever that you would to the martyr, specifically depicting things to the martyr and her rising here in of Idir. I don't think you guys specifically put in there her mortal past, but definitely her rising from this country to be great, because that's one of your selling points, right?
Yeah.
So obviously you'd be depicting that on the walls and whatnot, and showing different things. But also there is a mosaic or a statue, I should say, of Val that happens to exist in the temple as well. And some of the stuff kind of draped over, some of the stuff laid at the base of the statue are Val's actual personal belongings. So of the people here, there are some people that are just like looking at the different mosaics, some people that are just doing their own degree of worship, to worship. Some are kind of like sitting, some are kind of on a knee, depending on what the case may be for that individual, because different people do worship different ways. There's no like standardized, this is how you do it with the martyr's faith, at least as of now. But there are others that are also just kind of, paying reverence to their fallen chosen.
He would find a place to sort of sit, but he would look very uncomfortable, and not in this like in the sense of not knowing what to do. This is not he wouldn't have. He's when he was little, he might have gone to a church, but a very different church, and he stopped doing that.
This feels very different than that other one did.
Yes.
That other one had a lot of, it wasn't bad when you were young. It was actually nice and it was strong with the community and so on and so forth. It was very orderly. It was very like, you walked in this way, you went this way, you took a knee this way, you prayed this way. This here is a lot more like, faith is important to you. Express it how you like.
So yeah, he would find a place to sit, take in all of the detail work and everything, look at the symbol for the martyr, and just sort of try and he's just going to sit there and think for a while, decide what he thinks is going on with everything he's learned today, everything he saw today. He knows his abilities are positive energy stuff, and I assume he's learned that she is the positive energy one for now, at least. And so he's just gonna. It's not quite praying. He doesn't really know how to properly pray. He's just sort of in his own thoughts.
Gotcha. And so he can sit there and be within his thoughts, thinking about.
He would also. Sorry, go on.
No, go ahead.
I'll say he would also want look at the star. Is there anything he can learn about Valorant here as well, other than like the statue and his belongings?
So there's that one depiction of Val, like I said, and then there's of course his own parts to the story of the higher raising of the martyr is kind of again in the mosaics, but beyond that, it's his stuff, People here, of course, know who he is, but because there's other details about Val throughout the kingdom, so it doesn't all have to be in this one building, right?
Yeah. So, he would then get lost in his own thoughts.
You would kind of get lost in your own thoughts, and again, it's one of those things where as you're sitting there and you're thinking about all the all the stuff that has transpired or whatever, you can feel the sense of belonging here inside the temple to the martyr, but that's no surprise to you. You kind of already understood that. You can feel that is here. But more than that, it's one of those weird feelings that you get that while you're sitting there and looking about, and occasionally kind of like in your own head, your eyes closed, eyes open, looking about, it always feels like the statue of Val is kind of aware of you. You always get the opinion like It feels like it's with you. You know what I mean?
Okay. Then yeah, he might. I have one thing before he leaves. There's one thing he's going to do, but I think he'll just stay there for a while, just sit there and think, and then before he leaves, he might try and find one of the. Are there people sort of like looking like they're taking care of the temple and?
Oh yeah. I mean, there's definitely people that like the martyr is one of the biggest faiths in Idir, right? And the area that's around it. So absolutely, there are people that are handling the temple. I mean, I wouldn't say there's any proper head clergy that's here. It's more of kind of a community thing. Because this faith doesn't generally give full sermons and full. It can, and there certainly are people that are capable of doing that exist in the world. But this. What's the word I'm going at? This nation has never really put forward. They've kind of left things rather loose. Like, these are the three gods that we suggest you worship, but overall, we're not looking for that knuckle down kind of worship. They kind of draw a line around there. Well, there's a knuckle down non-worship of one god, isn't there?
He would go up to someone who looks like they're, doing things for the temple and just, excuse me.
Yes.
How would I go about getting a symbol to the martyr?
A symbol?
Pendant, maybe.
Oh, you would like to have an effigy?
Yes.
Oh, we can go about, and you're one of the you're the man that's been traveling with the Chosen lately, the hero of Herod, correct?
Once again, just yes.
Well, I'm surprised that you don't already have one. I can, of course, procure one for you. Are you familiar with her effigy?
No, I'm not.
Oh, it's actually a bloodied knife thrust into a burnt steak. It's perhaps a little aggressive to those that aren't familiar, but I'm sure you're very familiar. Would you like one fastened of wood? I have those readily on hand. I can just give one to you.
Wood may not last with me. Would I be able to get one of metal I can pay?
I'll speak to Hansa and see if she can fasten something together.
Thank you. And he would actually take 20 gold and just hand it over.
It's for the church.
Yes.
For the temple, he says, for the temple. And he takes it.
And then he would leave.
Okay, perfect. One of the things that you notice out of the stuff, like when you're looking at Val's stuff, is one of the things that seem a little out of place is that there's a large stick in his stuff. It's a big, staff that exists there, but it's a funny looking staff. I mean, it's clearly crafted out of wood, so on and so forth, but it's definitely strange or funny looking. Either way, it's one of the things that you happen to notice out of his things. There's other stuff that happens to sit there. I mean, it looks like mostly clothing and a backpack, and it's like, oh, his adventuring gear. That's the only thing that kind of strikes you as being strange or different or whatever.
Yeah.
Like, huh. Either way, oops, I think I was drawing more lines on the map. Moving on. So you can kind of go off, and we already know what the other two are doing, correct? Nathan, I don't know what you were doing in the interim. Anything of importance?
No.
Okay. So we flash forward. The general, all that stuff transpires as we had just discussed. And then you come back. You never told me beforehand where it was that you wanted to meet with him. Kind of very formally in the throne room, semi-formally as like the advisor group in the map room. I don't know, his bed chambers. What's the... Oh, and by the way, you do have, of course, your local carpenter or whatever it would be removing the door from Rayron's chambers and fitting it with a new one.
Cosmos, yeah, the royal enforcer. He's
Oh.
making sure that the door is royally enforced.
Yep. Yep. You know, I have to say, this oak right here makes for a great barrel. You see the way that it, anyways.
He just like licks it. That taste comes right out.
No, really. I made sure that I finished the front of the wood, right? So the door going outwards, it looks fine. So anybody that approaches the door of the Chosen, it's a fine looking door. Solid, but in the inside, I didn't put the finish on it. That way that beautiful oak smell comes through. Now the bands that go across, I didn't use oak, I actually used cedar because the perfect blend of 90-10 with the oak to cedar, the aroma, it just puts you to sleep at night, knocks you out. You get the best of dreams. Beautiful women, I'm telling you. This is how you dream about beautiful women.
Clogged mug.
Moving on. So,
Isn't it nice that our royal enforcer is like that, though, and not like the sort of I'll club you to death?
he will club you to death, though.
Yeah, but with a nice length of cedar.
Yeah.
That was good.
So what you're saying is it's a good thing that he's poplar? Huh?
All right, Birch, let's get on with it.
Oh, okay. I think this joke's rotting. So, you... Oh,
It's
God.
so bad.
It is really bad. All right. You, guys, where did you want to meet with the general? Just for the sake of painting the scene.
What's his face said? I'm happy with throne room or whatever. What's his face being one? Grishka.
Yeah, well, if he's presenting us with a gift, I don't know. Throne room, formal.
Totally.
All right.
Oh, Percy, his spot's been taken.
Yeah, what is in Percy's... There's something in Percy's way. Why can't he have the corner?
It's the PlayStation controller.
See, he's probably... You know, he's such a small dog, he's probably afraid of it. He's probably used to it vibrating and it scares him.
So he's just laid down next to. He's like, I guess I'm friends with you now.
Did you put that there to tease him? Like putting a fake snake in front of a cat? Is that what you're doing, Jake? Are you being a bad daddy?
I did not. No,
Are you being a bad daddy?
I'm not.
Yeah. Disappointed. So anyways. So you guys meet with him in the throne room. So it's one of those things where you kind of gather together and like, oh, the show that general is coming. We can have a bit of a formal welcoming of the general back. Now, mind you, it's not just the general that comes back. It's actually also the grand diplomat. He's been kind of traveling around with the general in case there's anybody that needs to be spoken to. You can have, you know, him.
That needs to be diplomatized.
He can handle the situation as diplomatically as possible. The general, of course, just murders the undead or frees the whatever. So when the doors eventually open, and you have the whole council there except for Ravina.
Yes, I guess so.
Okay, so the whole council's there with the exception of Ravina. And when the doors, of course, open and the general comes in, you can see he actually comes in and is carrying, strangely, actually he has a sack, almost like a burlap sack that he has over his
heads.
shoulder. He has like a burlap sack that's over his shoulder as he comes walking in, and which is unusual. He usually wouldn't carry something like that, but whatever he has must be rather large or heavy, right? So anyways, he comes walking in to meet with you. I don't know if the Chosen choose to speak first. Of course, you know, they do get announced on the way in. The person announcing them does say NPCs, hold on, where am I Chosen? There you are. You know, entering into the throne room, General Leon Jaeger and Grand Diplomat Arthur Freyam. I don't know if the Chosen choose to speak first. Neil, speech time.
Welcome back, General. It pleases me to see you whole and well.
I think we could do this. Hold on. Kingmaker. Does that? No, it just says names, unfortunately. We have to update the thing that's at the bottom of the screen. Pleases me to see you whole and well. And he says, likewise, I'm glad to see that the kingdom fares well and that the Chosen are well. He looks about the room and says, no new additions? With the fact that there's always seems to be new additions coming in.
Not into any official positions. However, more alliances, friends, and aid have been sequestered away to various parts of the, well, Idir proper, I suppose.
From what I understand, we have had a divine intervention of sorts.
Orin nods, but doesn't say anything back to that one.
I understand that the divine intervention was sent on behalf of the martyr and, the arbiter?
Yes.
He looks to, you can see kind of like tosses a sideways glance to Elliot, and for those who are very perceptive, so probably, sorry, what should I say his name is? Grishka, and maybe Nathan or Ilan, would notice that Elliot kind of gives a little bit of a nod, and his attention goes back to you guys. Well, I come bringing a report of how the lands fare. We continue to travel throughout the central part of Idir, trying to keep the undead at bay and keep our kingdom safe. One of the things we do with every individual outing is we head to the east. I once again pass through Rid. This is my third passing through Rid now. But this time, once again, we cleared out the dead that happened to be walking there. It's a strange thing. It seems as though they continue to gather in that town, despite the fact that there is nothing living there. I thought these creatures feasted on the flesh of living, but apparently they just like to gather in locations, and if there's the living there, they're happy. I can't really surmise their motives or goals beyond that.
Do they gather there, or as they are traveling through, do they simply stop?
I wouldn't know. We haven't never set scouts to stand and watch there for some time. Any small groups would unfortunately succumb to any large group of dead that they happen to come across. And while you think you might be able to outrun them, because you are individually and certainly your horse is faster, that's not always the case. There's always a stray undead, especially as you're traveling through the forests. You can't always hear them approaching. Just the natural sounds of the forest will mask their approach. They don't make much noise. They certainly can come around trees or surprise you when you're sleeping at night. We've lost more than 1 or 2 men to an attack at night that slipped beyond a scout or guard's positioning.
Let's see.
Traveling back from Rid, we also did stop by the fort again. It is also having repeated issues, but we did cleanse it once again. And everywhere we can find them along the countryside. Our men are tired, they're weary, and they need rest. And so I intend to have them stations outside of Kurzfall, with the occasional group coming into it for a bit of leave for about a week's time. And then we must march again. We could, in theory, splinter the group and have 2... Shut up, Siri. Doesn't like the word splinter. We could, in theory, splinter the group.
It was Theory that did it.
Oh, good call. I drag my THs. Theory. So it could in theory split. We could in theory splinter the group and get soldiers back out there sooner. But again, I happen to be on the side of safety in numbers.
I agree. There is no sense. The men, the women, they are already fighting a terrible enemy. Let us not make them fight them. Tired and sad.
If I may, I may be able to help at least with healing some of the more wounded. It would take time depending on the number, but I could do groups at a time.
You could attempt it if you'd like, but these wounds are not fresh. These wounds are days old, if not longer.
General, this is Ilan. I don't believe you've encountered him. He garnered himself the title of the Hero of Harrod before agreeing to assist us.
I've heard a reputation of you out and beyond the walls of Kurzfall. Well, the wall. Sorry, the out and beyond Kurzweil, he just says.
And I have heard at least a part about you, and I hear good things.
You're Perrin. And of course he means the country, not the race.
Yeah. He like, it's one of those things where he'd be like nodding as with what he said before. The second he says parent, there's that instant freeze, and then just yes.
There seems to be more and more of Perrin defecting from Paradel here.
I don't know what is happening, but things are happening. And he's like, he struggles to say that last part.
Defection wouldn't be the appropriate term anyway. You were not part of any military force or any such, Ilan?
No. No, I was not.
The Grand Diplomat Arthur does finally chime in at this point. As for a report on my ends, because, of course, General Jaeger here has more to share with you, but I figured I'd fill you in on my task as I've been traveling about. We do travel as far east as Rid, and then we did travel as far west as Loshev, where we did, of course, encounter a few, friends of mine. We got some supplies. The army is overall, for the sake of its supplies, faring pretty well. It's just a matter of course, the constant trekking, the constant fighting against creatures that do not let up, and there seems to be no end of them. But for those that we do encounter along the way, whether they be Thorpe's villages or even Loshev itself, they are fully aware of who it is and why it is that we are going about and delivering them from this evil that happens to be here. The goodwill of our nation, of Valoran, is being pushed forward, and our soldiers are genuinely behind the cause. I think that the morale, if only this damned plague would end, would be much higher right now. We just have to get through it. Honestly, we're all getting tired, but we just have to get through it.
The current safety of Kurzweil is assured, divinely so. I would ask the opinion of our Chosen of the Blade and General here of our next course of action. I have my own theories and opinions. I am happy to put forward so. However, I would not want to be seen as pushing this as the correct course of action. He glances to one as he says this. I wonder, General, how many wounded do you have?
Wounded, a few dozen. Those that have lost their lives, about a little over a dozen. With this outing.
We intend to travel to Hout-Gwen tomorrow.
I've been informed by the Chosen of the Blade.
I see. Are you aware that we've also come across medication used to treat the festering disease carried by many of these undead?
I am, and for that I thank the Marshal. Marshal, I appreciate what you've done here.
In which case, I would like to think of the best way to get as many of our soldiers treated, healthy, well, so that we can take our next course of action. And if I might suggest, I believe it would be a boon to send down the army to Forven.
Forven? I have not heard reports of Forven. How's it fare?
The city is ruined. The people still survive on boats. However, that will not last for long. They will be forced to make a break when their food runs out.
Arthur chimes in, on boats? That makes you wonder if they learned such a tactic from Vigil.
I suppose so.
How fares Vigil with that? We have not had an opportunity to head directly south. We've been trying to keep to the regions to the east and to the west and keep the borders around our own nation safe. We haven't had an opportunity to head there yet.
I would also
No, we
like to
haven't.
aid. One, please.
I was just going to say that I was about to actually go and check out Vigil with the aid of Athena. However, the mission changed when you got sick, but it is still on the forefront of my agenda. It would be useless sending the army there. They would just be torn apart by something they couldn't hit. If we remember Mog, who I think is still here, which that will require attention, had a way of finding ore that may allow our weapons to be able to affect the specters there. I'm afraid we won't really be able to do much for Vigil until that happens.
Well, I do not know who this Mog is, but if he has some way of mining an ore that can fight these creatures, then perhaps we should make that a higher priority. How is that going to be handled? Where is that coming from?
Well, it was going to be handled, however, something came up in regards to the Chosen of the Quill, which was dealt with first. He will be, if I remember, going to the Western Keep and then to the mountains around it. I think he knows where he's looking, and Rayron has come up with a good system of him taking part for himself as well as being able to provide us with ore. We will send him out rather soon. My only fear is that there is flying monstrosities in the area. And
Flying
I
monstrosities?
fear- yes, they came from the keep and they looked around.
He raises an eyebrow and says, "I wonder if they're the same monstrosities as this." And he like whips his the bag around that he's been holding there, and he holds a large sack before him. Whatever's inside there, it is not small. I mean, it looks like it could be about the size of a child.
Okay, uncover it.
He rests it on the ground so to alleviate the pressure from it pulling down and the pressure on the pull strings, as you can imagine. And as he does so, opens up the top, and then he kind of like works down a little bit to the what's it called? Top of the sack, so you can actually start to uncover a little bit. And almost immediately as he does so, it almost looks like there's some degree of horns or something like that that's on the inside that's poking out. And then he finally pulls forward, pulls completely out of the bag, the head of a dragon. Everybody here make a nature check.
Holy shit.
Of course, it's heads. What is it with people and pulling bodies and body parts out now? Means. I don't.
God damn.
Is that everybody?
Oh, Nathan knows.
Nathan,
I'm
Sorry.
not trained in nature.
you're fine, but you might actually know what this is. Oh, you're not trained in nature, then you won't. You won't. Ah, what a waste.
Oh
What a
shit.
waste. Yes, I got it to waste the 20. So Nathan, you actually do know what it is. Like I said, it's a head of a dragon. The three of them see the head of a dragon now being held by what's his name there? By Leon Jaeger. Not dripping or anything like that. So you imagine like whatever was on the inside was scooped and cleaned out because it doesn't seem to be dripping. There's no rotting smell or anything like that. It's actually, as soon as he pulls it out, there's almost like a smoke smell that fills the room. Like it was freshly cured or preserved, right? But anyways, you, Nathan, almost immediately at first second, you're like, is that oh, it's a wyvern. Or wyvern, if you happen to pronounce it that way.
That's how I would pronounce it.
So if so Ilan thinks it's a full dragon sort of thing.
Everybody, but literally everybody
Yeah.
standing here except for, well, actually, there's one person who might not think that. Give me
Ilan would visibly flinch when it comes out, like just like whoa.
one moment. Nope, not trained.
This is
Alien's the only person that doesn't think that is Nathan. So you visibly flinch. Everybody else?
Yep.
I
It
don't
was-
say anything at first.
Fine.
Those 3 from the freak folk that killed this, you say?
It was indeed. I encountered them one more time.
What was this about free folk?
The same free folk that delivered unto us the slaver from Forvin, in fact, were the ones that had found this creature, stumbled across it actually, and rid. They destroyed the creature, but warned us that there is another. Actually, there's a female carrying eggs that also lives seemingly around Rid as well.
What is it?
Fuck.
Some sort of dragon?
Does Nathan chime in or no?
He would actually wait to see if this person knows more. So he'd wait a second to see if they know.
I'm not very familiar with these creatures, but I believe it is a wyvern.
Nathan would confirm that. He'd be like, yeah, he's correct. That's exactly what it is.
See.
They actually have plagued Jovincia in the past, and so we've had to battle them back as they've tried to steal horses.
They're akin to dragon.
Clearly not as large. What? Nathan, you speak knowledgeably. You confirmed that this is what it is. Perhaps you could tell us all what it is that we might be facing.
How much exactly would I know about them, Scott? Other than the
Actually,
fact
with
I
that
identified it?
28, you know quite a bit about them. You know that wyverns are, while technically have a degree of intelligence, it's not a very high degree of
Right.
intelligence. It's like one of those Jurassic Park raptor level intelligences. You know what I mean? Where it's like,
Right.
oh, you know what I mean?
Yep.
It's blue, right? Anyways, you also know that they are very,
Violent.
very, very territorial, very violent, but not necessarily against people. They want to be able to hunt for their food, and if people get in the way, people die. You know that they're they actually have a tail with a stinger on it that has one of the most virulent poisons that Aurorum has to offer, or at least Eroth has to offer, one of the most virulent poisons in the world. And that one of the most biggest identifying factors for somebody who's lesser understanding than you to tell the difference between a dragon and a wyvern is that while a dragon has 4 legs and wings, wyverns have hind legs and wings. Most wyverns can't breathe any degree of anything, though there are rumors that some can. You're not sure if those are verified or not. Either way, these are, they're not puny or wimpy creatures by any stretch. And you know that if a female does lay eggs, they generally lay anywhere between 2 to 5 eggs. The eggs will hatch after not a terribly long period of time, and the hatchlings are already dangerous. Like, sure, a seasoned adventurer could probably clean out a nest of them or whatever, but they're already dangerous. Right, just at hatching within an hour. Give them a couple of weeks, and they become even more so. Give them a few months, and definitely so. Give them a year, you have a population.
I would explain pretty much all of that, but also saying you've seemed to take in its head. What of the rest of it?
I was given some of the meat as a gift so that you can dine on a fine-tasting meal. But the rest of it was kept by those that slayed the beast. I think they had an intention of utilizing its parts. I understand that the coat of a wyvern or any other drachnid could potentially be used for making a fine suit of armor or a shield.
The thing that concerns me most is whomever slain this beast had access to its poison.
Well, poisons like that are illegal in most countries, certainly in all of Paradel. They're quite virulent and quite dangerous, but correct me if I'm wrong, as I'm not well versed in this matter, that's a rather difficult thing to extract from the beast, isn't it?
I would imagine so, but it's not out of question. I imagine there are skilled people who could.
It's potential. These are free
Something
folk.
to look out for.
These are free folk, so they are men of the wild to a degree or otherwise. Perhaps they have that skill, but very well they may not either. I spoke of them on other matters as well. I wish the diplomat was there. Unfortunately, he was otherwise occupied. Removing rocks from his boots, I think it was. It's a long road.
Oh,
I spoke of them about the status of the free folk, who apparently are still together, and I don't want to use the word thriving, but doing well enough, considering the situation. They are somewhere near Varen. Apparently, they had resolved a horde that had gathered around Varen. I imagine you recall the situation that Valorin had handled outside of Varen in the past. Well, when those bodies rose, the free folk came to answer and protected the city. So, what they did afterwards, if they raided it, that information it didn't gleam. I also spoke to them about the Hetman herself and about the free folk themselves. It seems as though things are not entirely well with them. There's been a schism, and beyond that, there's been disagreements on how to approach the world as it's changing around them.
Go on.
The horses that were unfortunately taken from beneath our noses, as obnoxious as that was, they are actually not with the free folk, or at least its primary group. The schism has them. They were taken actually by the free folk's horse lord, the mountain man.
Mm.
Yes, Negan.
He separated from them and took the horses with him when he left. Beyond that, again, there is a disagreement on how the hetman should be handling these situations, at least from the perspective of the men that I spoke with.
Please. Elaborate.
They didn't go into much detail. Simply that maybe change isn't a bad idea. I asked them to deliver a message that if the free folk are willing to work with Greater Idir, perhaps we'd be willing to work with them. And I don't mean with the same arrangements that we had prior. We can't trust them the way that we did before. But they are the living, and so we must assume oppose the dead.
Yes. Tell me, this schism is led by Negan. And the hetman leads the main bulk, or the original free folk, whatever we wish to refer to them as. What is it each leader values? Which one, I presume, the lowlander wishes to continue with the way of raiding, pillaging, and the hetman is perhaps more amenable to whatever keeps her people alive and well.
I didn't get that information. I was outside the gates and with the dead and the wounded and looking to enter, so I didn't press the conversation too far. I can tell you that I don't know if the mountain man, Negan, you're saying his name was? I honestly don't recall it. I don't know if Negan is their leader, but certainly was a part of the faction that split off. I do not know his intentions or his whereabouts. I do not know the exact whereabouts of the hetman or her full intentions. I do know that these three happened to be with the hetman's group, and I believe they were heading back that way. I actually passed them on the road. I didn't see them myself, but I heard of it from the lieutenants as we traveled into Kurzfall. We passed them on the road from Rid here, and then the next morning they rode hard and fast to join us, having apparently fought the beast overnight. They also informed me. There are Perrin in the keep to the north.
Yes, we've been made aware of this as well.
I would like an opportunity to speak to the lieutenants that are there. Perhaps we can use diplomacy. Ask them to either leave the lands or at least be useful while they're here.
I would look to Rowan.
Or whoever's in command. He wouldn't say lieutenant, he would have said whoever's in command. My apologies.
This would be a task best left to our ex-general, ex-commander, and the Grand Diplomat.
It would be. So it seems as though I'm going to be heading both north and south.
Don't happen to have a double, do you?
I'm sorry, I do not utilize such magics.
Shame.
I leave deception to others.
Probably best. Stick with what you're good at.
Indeed. There's like a tension in the room as he says, as that last little bit is there. It's like you could feel everybody except for maybe Ilan, who just like picks it up because he's got a good sense motive. Or even again, Nathan, who picks up because he's got a good sense motive. Everybody in the room is like,
So we're in this room. Is Kithel in this room?
Kithel is. Yep, he's back here.
I would actually turn to one in like as a quick little side conversation as the room carried on. Say, who's with Ravina?
Oh, there would be guards down there, I imagine.
Yeah, but they would be told also to not approach her. They're not being seduced to let her out.
Okay. So he says, is there any news that I should be made aware of, or should I be taking advantage of my time to re-coordinate, plan my approach, and inevitably leave in, I suppose, less than a week's time if I'm going to be speaking with the Perrin?
We are traveling to Howd Gwen, and we intend to speak with the slumbering queen. We're going to offer her a large amount of supplies. We said we would provide this anyway, and we will do so in good faith. However, if we were to outfit your army with a small group of medics, enough to care for the men, keep them well, how many would you need?
Medics? 500 men is how many I try to keep with me at a time. If I can get a dozen, that would be more than enough. That would actually be borderline burdensome, and that's where I would like it. Too many have died. Too many of those dead have risen. Let's stop this cycle.
I will see if we cannot impress the importance of having soldiers that do not die and come back to fight our remaining soldiers, and see whether I cannot bargain somewhat with these herbs for that.
It's actually Kithel, who will chime in at this point. Excuse me.
Our intention is to bargain with the herbs to gain favor from them. I believe the intention of these herbs was to be given to everybody open and freely.
They will not be withheld. However, if we can garner favor to save people's lives, I see no harm.
I do.
Please, speak up.
You are saying that you will bargain with these herbs. The herbs should simply be given, and then other conversations could be had afterwards. To bargain would be to hold them aloft and trade with them or some degree of additional aid. That should not be done.
I
We should
just
just
said that they
simply
would not be withheld.
Perhaps the word bargain was mistaken, or perhaps I misunderstand you, Joseph.
You're not wrong to challenge the wording or my intent, Kithel. I agree. These were given to us freely by someone. They are not really ours. That we should benefit from them is good. That everyone should benefit from them is better.
On this, we completely agree.
Nathan, there is a female wyvern with eggs. What use are these eggs?
What use of these eggs? He would take a second and ponder.
You know
I-
that so wyverns are, or wyverns, whatever, are a natural part of the world, but obviously can be a nuisance if they're too close by. They actually usually live in Western Idir. They actually usually live in the mountains over there. The fact that they're this far over here is strange. The fact that they chose to come over here is strange. So, I mean, if you're looking at where they're supposed to be or where they naturally live, it's way over there. If you're looking at what use can come from them, technically speaking, anything that hatches or is born and you are able to get your hands on it around that time can be domesticated. But creatures like this are dangerous.
I would say,
Or omelet. Thank you,
I
Anna.
was gonna say you could eat them. What are you looking for?
These creatures are dangerous,
Yes.
vicious. They need not be so towards us.
You want to
Certainly.
train them.
Perhaps. If they can be trained, then they would be useful, no?
I don't recommend it.
I'm going to have to second with the marshal on this one. As you can imagine, as I said before, they have a history of attacking in Jovincia, which means at one point in time they were in Jovance. And again, as you can imagine, the slave lords of Jovance have certainly had the same idea in the past. They didn't mind the number of lives that were lost trying to tame these creatures. I do.
Not only lives lost to train them, but if they were trained, what use would we get out of them? Would we sick them on our enemies? Are we not going to just do that? We might as well just gather undead and deliver them to our enemy's doorstep. It's just uncivilized. It's not something I would recommend.
Uncivilized from a
Did you
druid.
say that?
When one hunts a fox, they
I
use
guess
hounds.
uncivilized is not the right word, but yes.
When one hunts a fox, they use hounds.
But do they use poison?
When
So-
one hunts flying undead abominations, the use of flying poisonous creatures may well be prescribed.
You can actually see that you do slightly change the general's opinion with that. And he says, you did mention flying creatures. Looking back over to, I think it was Jake that said it originally, back over to 1.
I would
With-
not suggest the use of these creatures upon... Sorry, it wouldn't interrupt, Leon.
No, that's fine. No, he asked that, he said, you did mention the use of them, looks to 1 to see if he's confirming. Because originally the reason why I pulled the head out is because he's like, oh, was it like this? Just kind of looking back to you for the answer to that original question.
I would not suggest that we use these creatures on our enemies. These undead do not fit the standard category of enemy. They are not enemies per se, but they are enemies to all living creatures.
And when the undead have gone and we've rid them, then what of the wyverns?
Then they live in the mountains, no?
So you say we set them free, but it would not be but a display to other people that these things can be trained and can be taken and harnessed for their own personal agendas.
Is is there a way to maybe remove or render the stinger ineffective?
Unless I'm mistaken, and it seems as though the Marshal here is more familiar with these beasts than myself, it is much like the tail of a scorpion. I imagine if you can clip the tail of a scorpion, you can do so here, but that might otherwise render the creature, well, inept at its own life. These things don't hunt small prey.
Yes, that is a good point.
And may also throw off their ability to fly. Again, I'm not very familiar with falconry or the grooming of feathers, but if it is a part of its balance or the like.
He would nod in just agreement, but not speak.
Falconry is something worth noting, however. I do not like the idea of attempting to tame these beasts. But if they were relocated back to the mountains, and if they were allowed to be wild and not kept within a keep, but from a young age we did try to impress on them not that we were their masters or that they served us, but to guide them to not only hunt their normal prey, but this prey as well. Almost impress upon them, much like you'd imagine a gladiatorial beast, triggers, things that would cause it to be more agitated. Triggers that...
And what if these undead infect the wyverns? What if we make that happen and we create a whole other issue?
They're already in the
creatures
region.
Aren't undead. I don't believe they're undead.
He would look over at the other chosen. Are they or aren't they undead?
What they are. I don't know. I haven't gotten the pleasure of dissecting one to find out, but from what I've seen, they seem to be more failed experiments than your typical undead. I mean, they might be, but also they may not.
Knowing that he's going to be heard by one because of how keen he is, Elliot whispers under his breath, and I imagine here comes another task.
One will actually get up and he'll look to Aurorum and he'll say, I'm going to take my leave of this meeting. Aurorum, and he nods, and then he turns and says, Council, it's a pleasure as always. And he heads to the door and walks out.
Elliot will actually say, Chosen, may I?
Yes, Elliot?
And he'll actually go to walk out with you.
I'll just nod and walk out.
Okay. You boys continue your counsel.
I just don't think it wise. That's all I'm saying. You do with your kingdom what you'd like, but I don't think it wise. And again, we're addressing the fact that we'd be losing lives to instill our will on these creatures. Is that worth it?
I don't know the manner of beast that is being referenced in the Western Keep. My gut tells me to let beasts be beasts, slay them if they're a nuisance, but otherwise it's their world as much as it is anybody else's. We don't need to necessarily hunt them down for fame or glory. However, the mountains is their home. It's the home to many other things. If it's not these wyverns that live out there, then it's other wyverns that live out there. That's all good and well. Is infection of the wyverns genuinely a concern? Is this something that I should be looking out for on the field?
We've seen no evidence of animals carrying the plague of the undead. I'm not wrong on that, am I?
No. We actually, at one point in time, you literally saw an undead creature. I can't remember who it was that rode back home from the keep. I think it was one. Eating a deer. But you didn't see, like, the deer get up or anything.
So we wish to speak to the parent. We wish to intervene with Forvin. We wish to rid rid of its issues, including a wyvern with eggs. And then the many assorted tasks in Hadgwen. Let us go to a break and I will write down who needs to go where.
Nice. Good segue. All right, everybody. We will be back momentarily, and we do, of course, have the tail end of this meeting to finish up with anyways. So we'll be right back. Enjoy your moment or three.